everyone! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mila, you're at Alexandrian Archives, and today I am going to do a video that no one asked for, but I figured it would be fun because I associate sort of fall with like long series, because in December you have like winter break, and then sprinkled throughout you have like, I don't know, Thanksgiving and reading week for university students, so it's like ample time to start a long fantasy series. So I have a list of a long fantasy series. Let me just find it. And so that is what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, I haven't finished. Actually, no, that's a lie. I've only finished sort of 2 of these, so to speak. I've read all of them. Like, I've read 1 or 2 books or 3 books. I'll tell you as we go along. But yeah, let's get to it. The first series I would recommend is Emperor's Edge. This is a self-published series, and this is what I would call gas lamp fantasy. So think steampunk, but more like gunslinger-esque, I guess. I'm not too sure. But yeah, this is 9 books. It's finished. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. But yeah, I read book 1, I started book 2, and I really enjoyed book 1. This has found family, this has a mystery aspect. It really hits the ground running, so there's like not a dull moment, and you follow these different characters. You follow our main character, who is a police officer, but then she's like sort of framed for wanting to like kill the king, and then and then an assassin is sent after her, but then she flips it. She Uno cards them. Okay, Uno reverse cards them, and she flips it on them, and it's like, I'm going to pretend I killed the assassin. We're gonna strike a deal, and we're gonna work together to take the person down that sent me on this mission. So I thought it was really fun, so I highly recommend. And they're not particularly long books, so you don't have to trudge through like 1,000 pages each. Which, speaking of 1,000 pages each, comes to my next recommendation, which is A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. Now, I read book 1, I started book 2, and I'm feeling the drag, so I set it down for now. I'm doing a whole different thing, vlog thing, for you guys. But yeah, I really enjoyed Game of Thrones. Obviously, if there are, check like trigger warnings. Like, this is an old fantasy series, but I think that knowing what you're getting and knowing the level of these things, just check the trigger warnings. You know, because it can be really difficult to read through some scenes sometimes. So for those that don't know, if you've been living in a rock, Game of Thrones follows several families, specifically in the first one, the Starks. And the Starks live in this place called Winterfell, and it's in the north, and they're always like cloaked, and it's always cold and stuff like that. And we follow the Stark family. We follow Ned Stark, the father, the head of House Stark. We have Catelyn Stark, his wife. We have, specifically, if you've heard the name Jon Snow being thrown around, that is one of the bigger players here. And Jon Snow is the supposed bastard son of Ned Stark, and we don't know who the woman is, who the mother is, and each house has a specific name for the bastard children, which I find really interesting because I don't think I've read any other fantasy series that did that. I don't know why I sort of harped on that detail, but I just found that really, really interesting. I was like, wow, that sucks, because if you have that specific name, they know that you're the bastard child. However, they know that you're like basically royalty, you know, you're from the leading house, you know. So I just thought it was really interesting. And so in this case, for the Starks, the bastard name is Snow. And yeah, I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, Song of Ice and Fire follows several different characters. You have the dragons, you have the Targaryens, which famously wed brother and sister and niece and uncle House of the Dragon. If you've been living under a rock, I am so sorry for you. But yeah, highly recommend. This is 5 books. The last 2 books have not come out yet. However, they're long, so it'll take you a while if you're a medium-ish reader. If you're a fast reader, stick to this next author because you will not run out of stuff to read. The next series I have, also speaking of 1,000 pages, is Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And why am I giving this to you, even though the series, all the eras aren't finished? Like, it's just, there are so many eras, okay? There's plans to be, like, so many eras for so many different things, and it's just, I can't even keep up. So, let's just stick to the core Cosmere, okay? Not the secret projects, not the recently announced stuff, because I haven't kept track of it, because I don't want spoilers. So, Stormlight Archive is part of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere is basically the MCU. Like, he created his own Brandon cinematic universe. In this case, it's Brandon bookish universe. So the Cosmere is a planetary system that has several planets, and each of his main series are on different planets. In this case, we have Stormlight Archive, and I believe it's on the planet of Roshar, if I'm not mistaken. Editing Mila will take care of it. She usually does. And Stormlight Archive is such a difficult series to explain because Brandon Sanderson there's so much world building, there's so much character building. First off, all the characters need therapy and a hug, and just therapy all around. Just someone to tell them, I love you and I am proud of you, because they go through it. So there are several characters that you follow, namely Kaladin and Dalinar and Shalon, however you pronounce it, I don't really care. And then you have other characters that's like Adeline and all these other characters, and then you have something called Bridge 4, and it's just, the world building is phenomenal. It's just action, action, action. There are some slow bits, but I think that it's a pretty phenomenal series, and if you have a Kindle, or a Kobo, or an e-reader, now's the time to pull it out, because those 1,000 pages you will not feel if you're just reading it on an e-reader, because you're not going to be able to visualize how big it is, and therefore you will not be particularly intimidated, because I think it's the visual that intimidates people. And yeah, that's what I did. Although I did read The Way of Kings physically, but I read The Wars of Radiance on my tiny 6-inch Kobo Clara HD, like the older ones. And I read that book in like 16 days. I finished it in like 16 days. It was crazy. Maybe one day I'll post the vlog for that if I find all the footage. But yeah, the next series I would recommend is Mistborn, and this isn't necessarily because of the page count. This is because it's like 2 eras, and so the first era has 3 books, and the second era has, I believe, 4 books, and then there's a third era sort of brewing, like there's a third planned era because Brandon Sanderson plans ahead. But basically Mistborn 1 and 2, I've only read Mistborn era 1, and then even then I didn't finish the third book, because I don't know what I felt. I just felt like the momentum was slowing down. But I do plan on finishing at one point. I will have to reread the whole series. However, Mistborn has such an interesting magic system. Its magic system derives from metals. So there are people that are called Mistborn that, if they digest all the known metals, they have their certain aspects of their body, for example, not for example, it is true, are enhanced. So for example, if you digest a specific metal, your eyesight becomes clearer, your hearing becomes sharper, you can fly, short distances, you can jump really high, you can do all sorts of things. Again, it's been a while since I read this. And it's just, there's a heist, there's found family, there's just so many plot twists too, there's a romance subplot, and the way that I really enjoy the way that Brandon Sanderson does his romance subplots, in the sense that it takes a while for it to progress to any point, and I feel like in a trilogy, the way that he built it was fantastic. And in Stormlight Archive, I think the way that he was building it was also absolutely phenomenal. So that's my little rant about Mistborn. The next series I have is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, and I feel like no one's surprised at this point, but Robert Jordan wrote this series, and then he passed away, and Brandon Sanderson was chosen by the publisher and the editor and the widow of Robert Jordan to finish the series. And I've honestly heard nothing but praise for Brandon Sanderson for the way that he wrapped up the series. This is 14 books, plus I think a shorter book that's a prequel to the whole story. And I read the first book, and there's so many pulls from things like Lord of the Rings. And, well, that's really the only thing that comes off the top of my head, because you have this adventure, you have sort of a splitting at some point, you have this overarching mystery. Do I know what the Eye of the World is? Absolutely not. Am I interested in the fact that the women are in charge of the magic? Yes, because that is pretty fundamental and pretty, not particularly common. Again, it's been a while, but the main sort of magic users are women. And I haven't finished the series because, again, it's like 14 books. And I have heard, apologies, my nose is a little bit runny. I've just been sneezing all day. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I decided to pick up the yarn and crochet something, and all of a sudden it's just sniffles all around. I'm not actually sick, it's just my nose, you know. But I heard that the middle section, like book 5, 6, 7, 8, are sort of like, well, no, book 4, 5, 6, 7, sort of the middle portion, are very slow and very repetitive and stuff. So unless you're ready for that, I wouldn't recommend this, but I would recommend this if you do want to sink your teeth into a very long series. And I'm sure there are plenty of videos on YouTube which is like, oh, do you need to read this one? Oh, which part is like, you know, quick summaries of the books, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, and the next one I have is Lord of the Rings, obviously. This is the, like, cornerstone of Western epic fantasy, you know. I don't need to tell you anything else about it. The next one is the Dresden Files, and this is an urban noir-esque fantasy. We follow the only wizard in Chicago who teams up with the police to investigate sort of the supernatural crimes that are happening around in his neighborhood, and he just has this funny sort of darkish humor. Obviously there are critiques about like misogyny and sexism, so take that into account and perhaps read it with a critical eye. But I read 6 books, and I believe there's like 15 of them. Like, there's quite a bit. And why do I feel like I'm repeating myself? Oh, okay, I think I know why I feel like I'm repeating myself. But yeah, so they're fairly short books, actually, in comparison to some of the ones that I've recommended, but it's a longer series, and I've heard that it does get better as we go on, as the author refines his craft, so I would highly recommend it. I thought it was really fun. The next one I have is Memoirs of Lady Trent, and this has dragons, and this has like a researcher who's a woman who, it's like sort of like I don't want to say medieval, but sort of like, I don't know, Bridgerton era England, in a sense, where women are expected to marry and have babies and be at home, and she's like, no, I'm going to explore. And one thing to note is in the first 2 books there's constant reference to this voyage, that, and the reason for this is because Lady Trent, our main character, Isabella, I believe her name is referencing back. So she's older, and she's referencing back to her adventures. And the 3rd book is called Voyage of the Basilisk, and this is where she goes on this huge voyage, and she explores basically the sea that's around them. And so that's, in case you get confused, in case you started and get confused, that's what it's referring to in the first book. I read the first 2 books and I really enjoyed them. The second book definitely was not my favorite, and I was looking forward to book 3. However, I just sort of stopped because I think I was feeling the drag of it, like it was losing its momentum just because of how much I didn't really like book 1. However, I do want to reread it, perhaps in the new year, and I will come back to you with my full thoughts. And the final books that I have are, it's a duology, and it's part of a, I guess, a longer series that's sort of in the works, because, I don't know, you'll know. It's The Priory of the Orange Tree and A Day of Fallen Night. Oh my god, I need to sneeze so bad. But basically, Priory of the Orange Tree was published first, and then The Day of Fallen Night was published after, but The Day of Fallen Night is the prequel, and it's just this long, beautifully written, beautifully constructed story about various characters. It has dragons in it. It has, like, a queendom, and it's just, so good. And, again, this is one of those that are long, in page, like, they're long books. There's a lot of pages to read. However, I mean, I read, like, Priory in, like, what, 10 days or something? Like, I read it really fast. And, was it 10 days? Anyways, some people read these books in, like, 2 days, and that's, like, crazy. I'm like, I cannot sit there for 8 hours. I need to be doing other things in between. But yeah, I'd highly recommend this one. This one just has beautiful world building, and I love the dragons. I loved every bit of it. The ending, I do understand why people say that it's a little bit rushed. I thought it was fine, honestly. I'm excited to get to A Day of Fallen Night, as I've been saying for literally all the books that I've recommended to you today. Anyways, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I will link the books down below. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on all my socials. Let me know your thoughts down below. That's the usual spiel. And I will see you